Hello again, Gary Stearman for JR Church. Today's prophecy in the news update is on May the 19th, which happens to fall today on the 6th of Sivan. It's the traditional day of the Jewish Shavuot, which means in English weeks, the festival that we call Pentecost. The Jews observe it today. Christians will observe Pentecost next Sunday, the 23rd. And here's what Israel National News has to say on this day. Jewish men and women in Israel will join their brethren around the world to learn all night Tuesday, although in Israel the holiday is observed for only one day. Many will also be eating dairy foods and putting on greenery in their homes and synagogues, all in the name of observing the Shavuot holiday. The practice of learning all night, and by the way, they stay up all night to study, and we'll talk about that in a moment. The practice of learning all night is a custom rather than a commandment, and is the expression of one's desire to draw closer to God. It's also carried out to counter the behavior of the Jews who slept all night at Mount Sinai. Now that's a tradition they have. Instead of waiting for the giving of the Torah, by staying up the entire night and studying, their descendants strive to rectify the slight caused to the honor of the Torah. Well, that's the Israel National News coverage of Shavuot. Shavuot takes place on the 6th and 7th of Sivan in the modern world. Today would be Shavuot. Tomorrow they call Isru Hag, which means binding the festival. And so they spend 2 whole days. Religious Jews stay up all night studying what is called Tikkun Leil Shavuos, which is a special set of readings for Pentecost. Here are some of the Jewish observances that you find concerning Shavuot, or weeks, the festival we call Pentecost. There is a commemoration of the book of Ruth because Ruth is set at harvest time, as is Pentecost. Ruth's conversion to Judaism is analogous to our voluntary acceptance of the Torah, say the Jews, and God's covenant at Sinai. King David, according to the Jews, was born and died on Shavuot, Pentecost. And the book of Ruth ends with a genealogy from Ruth down to King David. Reading the book of Ruth means that the totality of the Torah is celebrated on Shavuot, for Ruth is a part of the Ketuvim. The Ketuvim are the writings that come together with the Torah and comprise what we call the Old Testament. Now, the book of Ruth commemorates the Ruth meeting Boaz at midnight on Pentecost and sealing the deal, if you will, on a marriage that resulted in the formation of the kingdom. Pentecost, as described in the 23rd chapter of Leviticus, comes at the end of a count of 49 days. Reading in the 23rd chapter of Leviticus, starting in verse 15, "And ye shall count unto you from the morrow after the Sabbath, from the day that you brought the sheaf of the wave offering, 7 Sabbaths shall be complete." 7 times 7 is 49. "Even unto the morrow after the 7th Sabbath shall you number 50 days. And you shall show a new meat offering unto the Lord. You shall bring out of your habitations 2 wave loaves of 2/10 deals. They shall be of fine flour. They shall be baked with leaven. They are the first fruits unto the Lord." And so 50 days after the Feast of First Fruits, you have the priest coming out and pronouncing a completion of sorts with 2 loaves of leavened bread held up and waved as a wave offering before the Lord. That is Pentecost. And you know, those baked loaves represent a kind of a completion. Now, this is interesting because when you study Pentecost, what you find out is that Pentecost, as we mentioned earlier, is featured among the Jews as being tied to the marriage ceremony at Mount Sinai. The giving of the law is considered by the Jews to be a marriage contract or a marriage covenant. And this marriage covenant is celebrated every year in a festival that's called Tikkun Leil Shavuot, readings for the night of Pentecost. The practice of staying up all night, say the Jews, is in stark contrast to the Jews around Mount Sinai who slept overnight. And according to tradition, they overslept and they had to be awakened by Moses in order to receive the law. So, as the saying goes, Jews nowadays stay up all night to avoid that embarrassment. It's called the preparation for Sinai. Michael Strassfeld says this: "Therefore, we stay up all night to decorate the bride." Now, if staying up all night to receive the law was a Jewish custom that's honored in Tikkun Leil Shavuos, what you're really doing is staying up all night to observe the marriage contract at Sinai. And here's a fascinating thing. There is a belief by religious Jews that at some time during the night of Pentecost, the heavens will open up and the truly religious observant Jew will receive a special blessing. That is, whatever his prayer happens to be at that time, that prayer will be answered. Staying up all night, decorating the bride, that's what the Jews have been doing overnight. And then they are going to bind the festival on the second day, the 7th of Sivan. And this is for them looking forward to the kingdom. Because again, the book of Ruth is celebrated at Pentecost, and the book of Ruth results in the Davidic kingdom. There's something interesting about this that we find in the New Testament. and it might come under the heading of when did these customs start? I'm going to turn to Acts chapter 2. And Acts chapter 2 has in it a fascinating account of Tikkun Leil Shavuos, readings for the night of Pentecost. We read in Acts chapter 2, verse 1, "And when the day of Pentecost was fully come, they were all with one accord in one place, and suddenly there came a sound from heaven as of a rushing mighty wind, and it filled the house where they were sitting, and there appeared unto them cloven tongues as of fire, and sat on each of them. And they were all filled with the Holy Spirit and began to speak with other tongues as the Spirit gave them utterance." If you think about it, the second chapter of Acts starts with a telltale sentence, "And when the day of Pentecost was fully come." That means that, that the disciples had stayed up all night long, as was the custom. The next morning at sunrise, when the day of Pentecost was fully come, they were all with one accord in one place. They had been observing what is today called Tikkun Leil Shavuos. And the next morning the sun rose and they received the Holy Spirit. It was the birth of the church age. We're going to observe it this year on this coming Sunday, the 23rd of May, which comes on a Sunday, that is the day after the Sabbath, just as given in Leviticus 23. So, keep watching, keep observing, keep looking up, because Pentecost is coming, and for us that would be the 23rd of May. Gary Stearman with another Prophecy in the News update.